You know that feeling, right? Waking up from a dream that's so completely bizarre, you just have to ask yourself, where did that come from? Forever, we've wondered if dreams are just random brain static or if they mean something more. Sigmund Freud came along with a wild idea. He said our dreams aren't just noise, they're actually secret messages, coded communications from our own unconscious. So the question is, how do we crack the code? Let's dive in. Freud gets right to the point here. What you see in your dream, the people, the places, the weird situations, that's not the real story. He calls them ungenuine substitutes. It's like they're decoys, you know? They're placeholders for a deeper, hidden truth that our conscious mind just can't or maybe won't deal with directly. All right, so here's our game plan. First, we're going to tackle the big puzzle of why dreams are so weird to begin with. Then we'll get into the 2 layers of meaning that Freud said every dream has. After that, we'll check out his actual decoding method, his toolkit. And then, this is the fun part, we'll use it to solve a couple of his famous cases. And finally, we'll see what this all tells us about what's going on deep inside our own minds. Okay, so let's start with that central mystery. Why are dreams so utterly bizarre? I mean, we've all had them. Dreams about flying over a city made of spaghetti or having a serious conversation with a squirrel. The sheer randomness of it all seems to make no sense. But what if all that weirdness is actually the whole point? And this is Freud's big game-changing answer. He said dreams are a kind of wish fulfillment, but not for simple stuff like a new phone. Nope. We're talking about deep, buried wishes and thoughts from our unconscious. And because those thoughts can be pretty disturbing, the dream has to act like a master of disguise, twisting and scrambling them into the weird stories we remember. It's basically a protection system for your mind. So to really get this whole disguise thing, you've got to think of every single dream as having 2 different layers. It's kind of like a message written in invisible ink. All you see is the paper, but the real message, that's hidden right underneath. Okay, so on top, you've got the manifest content. That's just the story you remember when you wake up. The flying spaghetti, the talking squirrel, all that stuff. It's the surface. But underneath that, that's where the real treasure is, the latent dream thoughts. This is the raw, hidden, unconscious truth that the dream is working so hard to cover up. Our entire mission, then, is to travel from that surface story down to the hidden meaning. Okay, great. So how in the world do we actually do that? How do we get from the weird surface story to the deep truth? Well, Freud didn't just leave us hanging with a theory. He actually created a very specific technique, a whole toolkit for this. And the number 1 tool in that kit is something called free association. The idea is actually pretty simple, but it's super powerful. You just take one little piece of the dream, an image, a feeling, a word, and then you just talk. You say whatever pops into your head, no matter how random or silly it seems. The whole point is to get past that inner critic, that filter in your brain, because that seemingly random thought might just be the one thread that unravels the whole thing. He even gives us 3 basic rules to follow. Rule number 1, forget about the overall story. The weird plot? Doesn't matter. Just ignore it. Rule 2, take it piece by piece. Focus on one element at a time and see what other ideas bubble up. And rule 3, and this is a big one, you gotta be patient. You can't force it. The hidden meaning will pop out on its own if you just trust the process. Of course, it's not always that easy. There's a catch. Freud noticed that right when you get close to something important, your brain puts up a wall. He called it resistance. It's that little voice in your head, you know the one, that says, oh, that's a stupid thought, or that's not important, skip that, or whoa, I can't say that out loud. But here's the genius move. Freud figured out that this resistance isn't a stop sign, it's a treasure map. It's pointing right at the good stuff. The thoughts that you try the hardest to push away are almost always the most critical clues. So that feeling of, ooh, I probably shouldn't say that, that's exactly where you need to go. Okay, enough theory. Let's see this thing in action. We're going to open up Freud's case files and play detective on a couple of these dream mysteries ourselves. All right, case file number 1. A young married woman has this dream. She's at the theater with her husband, but a whole section of the seats is empty. And her husband mentions that they rushed and could have gotten cheaper tickets. On the surface, it seems kind of boring, honestly. Maybe she's just worried about money or planning events. But remember, rule number 1, ignore the surface story. So what's really going on here? An empty theater, cheap tickets. What is this all about? Let's follow the clues her mind left behind. So, using free association, she starts talking. The empty theater reminds her that she'd bought other tickets too early that week. The idea of being in a hurry makes her think of her sister-in-law, who was rushing to buy some jewelry. And that leads her to think about her younger friend, who isn't married yet. And then, suddenly, boom, the threads all connect and the real thought just blurts out, "It was absurd of me to be in such a hurry to get married." And there it is. Case cracked. The dream had nothing to do with a play. Buying tickets too early was just a stand-in for getting married too early. The half-empty theater and the cheap price, those were symbols for the low value she unconsciously felt her marriage had. A totally mundane dream was hiding this huge secret regret. Wow. Okay, let's look at another one because the dream disguise can be sneaky in different ways. This one isn't a big, complicated story. It's actually all about simple wordplay. A patient dreams of his family sitting around a table, and it reminds him of a family he knows named Tischler. See, the whole clue here is a pun. In German, the word Tisch means table. The family's name is Tischler. The dream used the image of a literal table to point to the Tischler family. It was a clever, simple way for the dream to draw a connection between the dreamer's family and this other family, without ever saying it out loud. The meaning was hiding in plain sight. So, after cracking these cases, what's the big punchline here? What have we really learned from this journey into the bizarre world of dreams? Well, the first and most important takeaway is this. You can never, ever take a dream at face value. Everything you see, every person, every object, every weird event, is a distorted substitute for something else. It's a cover for a thought or feeling that your mind is trying to keep hidden. And here's the really wild, counterintuitive part. The weirder the detail, the more important it probably is. All the stuff in your dream that seems random, confusing, or totally trivial, that's not junk. That's actually where the disguise is weakest. That's your way in. And this might be the most mind-blowing idea of all. Just think back to that woman and her theater dream. The whole point was her regret about getting married too fast, right? But the words married or hurry were nowhere to be found in the actual dream. The main, central point of it all can be completely invisible on the surface. Which leads us to one final really big question. If Freud is right about this, if our dreams are these secret coded messages sent from the deepest parts of ourselves every single night, then the only question that really matters is, when you wake up tomorrow from some strange dream, what is it really trying to tell you? What are your dreams trying to hide?